Okay, here's a short video showing the construction and installation of my motor mount for my 2020 Hobie Tandem Island. This was based on the work by Pro Tennis on a discussion forum at the Hobie.com forums. I suggest you look at that before you start your mount. There's lots of discussions and contributions to that have been really great. Here's the diagram essentially uh, of my mount. You can mount it to stick out either on the port side or the starboard side, or change it later if you like. It really doesn't matter. It's kind of a personal preference thing. Here's the motor in action. I'm finding I can go about 8 or 10 miles, nautical miles, on the internal tank, which holds about a quarter gallon or 1 liter. All that depends on the conditions. I run mine at just a little over idle, and I get about 4 knots. The first thing to do is decide where you want to mount everything. A couple things to consider are you still want access to that rear hatch, and also it's best to have the motor as close to the center line of the boat as possible, as it'll work a lot more efficiently. Beyond that, it's a bit of a personal preference based on how long your arms are, I guess, and if you want to store stuff on the rear deck. So this shows where I chose to install mine. I'm close to the center line of the boat, and I can still get access to the rear hatch, and I have plenty of room to store stuff on the rear deck. So once you've figured out where you want to mount it, take your Yak Attack gear tracks and confirm that the underside where the backing plates will be installed are clear of obstructions. You definitely don't want to screw this part up and think you're going to mount it one place and find out it's obstructed from the underside. Now, in addition to the stainless bolts that attach to the gear tracks, I also used a 3M 5200 adhesive sealant. This could be overkill, but the main thing to do is to make sure that the load from the mounts spreads across the mounting surface as best you can. So now make really sure you're ready, because there's no turning back at this next step, because you want to line up your mounts, and now you'll drill holes through the end of each track. Then run the bolts through the backing plate to make sure things are going to screw in properly. So if you're going to go use the adhesive, tape off the perimeter of the gear track, but make sure you don't get the tape under the track, or you'll have a hell of a time removing it later. Trust me on this one. So apply the adhesive liberally and then attach the track to the backing plate. I used blue thread lock on the bolts, but I think that's really overkill, because the adhesive is also going to get on the threads and keep everything from backing out later. So I probably wouldn't worry about that, at least for these bolts. So then drill the rest of the holes, tighten everything up, and then the next step is you have to wait for the adhesive to cure. I think the instructions on mine said wait 48 hours. I actually just waited a week because I was doing some other stuff. So in the meantime, you can go watch some videos. One of the nice boats out here in Santa Barbara. Visiting a couple times. The next step is to install the rest of the mount using the hardware I list at the end of the video. I suggest using the blue thread lock on each bolt. And then note that I put nail polish on each bolt so I could easily check to see if they come loose at a later date. I've never seen any loosening. I doubt they will. So the one significant modification I made from Pro Tennis design was in using spherical washers. And I did this because the gunnel of the boat isn't horizontal, so it doesn't line up. And I didn't want to add stress to the boat when I tightened everything up. So I use these spherical washers. They're not real cheap, but I think it's a good measure. Is it necessary? I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. You decide. Then you can mount the motor. I prefer to have it on the starboard side, but you could also put it on the port side. It's just really whatever you want to do. The Suzuki 2.5 4-stroke is a great motor, and I've been very happy with mine. And plus, it's a great safety item to have if you're far from shore. It also rides very nicely when you're sailing. It stays out of the way. I never really have conflicts with lines. Now here's the dimensions for the aluminum that I used. I guess you could cut this with a hacksaw, but it would be a hell of a chore. I used a metal chop saw. They're not that expensive, and I use it for lots of other things anyways, but that's how I would do it. Now my mount sits about 6.5 inches above the gunnel, the bottom of my mount. And that puts the shaft of the short shaft Suzuki just about right. And it also keeps water from slamming against the mount when you're in big waves. I've never had a problem with that, the way it's been mounted. Here's the model number and what I paid for the Suzuki. I purchased online, I don't recall where, but you should be able to get a similar price somewhere. And then here's the materials. You can just stop the video and write these things down if it's something you want to do. So here you go. Hope you have a fun install. As I said, I'm very happy with mine and can highly recommend this as a great addition to anyone's tandem island. Have a great day.